This is Rob Gray from ASU and PerceptionAction.com. Today on the Perception in Action podcast, my interview with Randy Sullivan, CEO and owner of Florida Baseball Ranch. Hi everyone, welcome to the Perception in Action podcast, where I discuss how psychological research can be applied to improving performance, accelerating skill acquisition, and designing technologies. In today's episode, my interview with Randy Sullivan. Randy is a physical therapist and certified strength and conditioning specialist. He is also CEO and owner of the highly innovative training facility, Florida Baseball Ranch. In the interview, we discuss how Randy's approach to skill development and injury rehabilitation has evolved over the years and address the how-to of self-organization. We also preview a really exciting upcoming one-of-a-kind event that I will be participating in, the Florida Baseball Ranch and Dutch Baseball Skill Acquisition Summit, which will be held on September 8th and 9th of this year. Hope you enjoy!
Not 10 years ago, I was a child. I was a good boy and you let me go. Now I'm on a talk show.
Okay, today my guest is Randy Sullivan, CEO and owner of the Florida Baseball Ranch. Thanks you for taking some time to talk with me, Randy.
Hey, Rob. Nice to see you. Nice to hear from you. Thank you. I'm really excited to be here. I've been a fan for a long time, and I'm thrilled to be on your podcast. It's great.
That's great. And the main thing we're here to talk about is the really exciting skill acquisition summit we have coming up. But before we get to that, I thought I would ask you if you could tell us a bit about your background and a little bit about what you do at the Florida Baseball Ranch.
You bet. Okay, so yeah, I'm a physical therapist and a certified strength and conditioning specialist and a sports nutrition specialist. And I've been a physical therapist now for 25 years. I started out, we opened a private practice in Brandon, Florida, in the suburbs of Tampa. And we've been running that now for 25 years. And my business partner, Amy, has been with us for 18 years. And she's sort of the business mind and keeps me from running it into the ground. And she's also my partner in the Florida Baseball Ranch. And we all are, our beginnings were that I was the father of a son. I was coaching, my three boys in travel ball and everything. And I thought there was something off about, the way we were teaching and also the way we were managing, arm injuries and pain and that kind of thing. And so I had a 17-year-old son who was a 78 mile an hour lefty, topping at 81, really good pitcher, won a lot of games, could not get recruited because he didn't throw hard enough. And so we had to start digging into the idea of how do you teach someone to throw harder, but do it safely. And, when you asked all the baseball people, all the traditionalists, it was a gift. It was genetics. It was, you can't help them. It's just what, and I thought, you know what? I'm a physical therapist and I teach movement all day long. Maybe I can't make it elite, but I think I can make it better. So we just started researching everything we get our hands on from every possible discipline, all of the ologies and looking for any information we could find. And our journey took us to the Texas Baseball Ranch, where I met my good friend and colleague, Ron Wolforth. And, he kind of showed us a path that we kind of refined and individualized for my own son. And he was able to gain 12 miles an hour in 2 years and achieve his dream of becoming a Division I college player. And I began to notice, as a physical therapist in the baseball community, we started sort of attracting players that had arm pain. And really nobody had a plan to help them solve that. And so started realizing that the same variables that we were using to help these kids improve their velocity really helped keep their arms safe and healthy too. And so we started applying the principles to some of these injured players. We saw some remarkable results. They started getting better and going on to have wonderful careers, even guys who, doctors had said, you'll never be able to pitch again. And there they are doing their thing. And so that sort of morphed into our physical therapy practice became the Armory Power Pitching Academy, which is literally in an office. It was 15 by 60 feet next door to our physical therapy clinic. And it was empty and we rented it and started training guys. And that it grew and grew and grew into the point where finally Ron Wolforth and I got together and said, together we're better than individually. And so we formed this collaboration called the Florida Baseball Ranch and Texas Baseball Ranch. And now we work together to just kind of help push the discipline forward and find innovative new ways to help guys get better while keeping them safe and healthy. And then along the way, our real true mission is to teach young men life lessons that they can use as they go forward whether they make it to the big leagues or not, the journey that gets them there teaches them all some wonderful lessons that they can use for the rest of their lives. And so that's really what we do. And it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's really great. And I like your approach of lots of different aspects and all the ologies, as you said.
Yeah, all the ologies.
That's really the way you have to do it now. And so, as I mentioned, the main thing we wanted to talk about was the full title is the Florida Baseball Ranch and Dutch Baseball Skill Acquisition Summit, which is coming up on September 8th and 9th of this year. So we want to talk about that. And I thought maybe we could start with where kind of the impetus and your idea came from for this. And I think you have an interesting kind of backstory, I know, about this. So maybe we could start with there.
Well, perfect. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for agreeing to be one of the speakers and the presenters there. I mean, I've been a secret stalker of your stuff for a long time. Really, really thrilled when I reached out to you and you immediately said, yes, I would love to be a part of that. And I was like, wow, that's really fantastic. So we gathered up all these really brilliant scientists and then the most progressive thinking coaches that we could find. And many of them are from the Dutch National Federation. And the whole purpose is to get these guys together and let's present the leading edge skill acquisition science that's available. And then let's have the coaches translate the science into actionable plans so that coaches, physical therapists, trainers, strength and conditioning coordinators can all come here and get the best information, but also not walk away with some esoteric, academic idea, but with really, concrete ideas and processes to help you implement those into the practices so we can help our players get better faster. Okay. And also in the medical world, help them heal and overcome their injuries faster. And so the story goes like this. Okay. I was doing, the normal baseball coach thing. I'm a father of 3 boys, all played collegiately. My last one's a freshman right now at University of South Florida. And so I was a baseball dad. I played collegiately at the Citadel and was not a pitcher, but a catcher, but learned a lot about baseball. And then I became a physical therapist. And so I was at the Texas Baseball Ranch Ultimate Pitching Coaches Boot Camp. I think it was in 2015 or 2014. I cannot remember exactly, but Franz Bosch was the keynote speaker. Ron Wolforth had met him over in Belgium at some conference and invited him over to be the speaker. And, everybody in the room, there was like 200 coaches and we were all, typical coaches, man. Using the process that I call Twit Training, TWIT, and that stands for here's the way we coach. We go, okay, tell the player what to do, watch him do it, inform him of all the mistakes he made, and then tell him how to do it better. and it was really inefficient, and we were all sort of feeling the same thing. And we all felt, most guys felt like, man, I think it could be better, but we didn't really know what to do. And Franz got up there, and here he is speaking to a group of 200 coaches who make their living telling people what to do, watching him do it, and telling them how to do it better. And he stood there, and, a little diminutive Dutchman with his thick accent and said, the body has very little interest in what the coach has to say. That's how he led. and you could have heard a pin drop in the room and people started shuffling around and whispering to each other. And I kind of sat forward on the edge of my seat. And as he went on through the process of talking about, degrees of freedom problems and Bernstein principles and skill acquisition concepts like self-organization and dynamic systems theory, a lot of the guys in the room sort of seemed to be blown away, but I was just mesmerized and I couldn't get enough of it. I'm like, wow, this is new information that I needed to know. And I think it's a better way if I can figure this out to help. And so, the next morning, I went to bed that night thinking and gosh, just making note after note after note about how I could take this home and apply it to our practice and to our training academy. And I went downstairs to have breakfast, a little continental breakfast at the Drury Inn in the Woodlands, Florida, where we all stay when we go to Texas. And there was Franz Bosch in the corner enjoying a Danish or something. And little did he know that that serendipity would intervene here, and he would be stuck. His escort to the airport that day, he had spoken the day before, and he was supposed to be driven out by Trevor Bauer, of the Cleveland Indians. Mm-hmm. Trevor, grew up as a ranch guy, and Trevor was supposed to pick him up, and he was notoriously late. It was Trevor, so he was running actually 2 or 3 hours late. And so I sat down and kind of snuggled up with Franz for, 4 hours and talked motor learning and skill acquisition. And he was so gracious and shared all the information. And he had heard one of the presentations that I made, and we talked about that. And it just became this ignition for me to say, man, this is really important stuff that I need to really relearn, if you will. Because, I'd studied motor learning, at the graduate level in 1991. Now here it is, 2014. And to be honest, I had sort of drifted away from it and was just doing the same old stuff that we always do. And it kind of lighted a fire for me to dig deep into motor learning and skill acquisition science. And I started reading and listening to everything I could get my hands and ears on. And, kind of did a 5-year crash course to make up for the last 15 or so years that I had been neglecting it. And just really got inspired and came up with, new ideas to create processes that would help our players get better faster. And then I really realized that, the same principles that we're using to help these guys improve their skill will apply in my physical therapy practice. And, a lot of times in physical therapy, we make the mistake of isolating movements in, outside of the function of the kinetic chain and not letting the body operate as a system, and doing little, individualized exercises where we're just isolating muscle groups and not letting the patient who's trying to find a way to heal, not letting his infinitely intelligent body self-organize and move in a way that allows him to progress toward more functional movement without dictating exactly how they have to move. And so it's sort of revolutionized both of my businesses, my baseball training business and my physical therapy practice. We kind of just changed the way we do things. And that led to a relationship with the Dutch Baseball Federation. And I just recently, they had me come over there last May, and I spent 5 days over there just working with all their trainers and most importantly, their medical professionals over there on how we can use this idea of the body as a dynamic complex system and allowing self-organization to occur even when we're trying to recover from injury. And so it kind of led to this idea that there was so much information, and I felt like the Dutch were just well ahead of us on this side of the ocean. And I thought, man, if I can bring them over here and get the coaches and the intellectuals together and bridge that gap, I think that we can do a lot to kind of push the industry forward into a better way to help these kids improve not only just the way they play baseball, but to keep them safe and healthy. Try to help make a bigger dent into this injury problem that we have. I mean, we've been doing the same approach to injury management and arm health for 12 to 15 years, and it hasn't changed because I think that how we're teaching and how we're going about it is flawed according to what skill acquisition science tells us. Yeah. So that's how we got where we are.
No, that's a really cool story, and you'd use the same word that I would use when I experienced learning about this from reading, not from meeting Franz Bosch, unfortunately. But the revolutionary is the word. It's such a change in the way you think, and if you buy into it, it's just, to me, it was a aha moment. It wasn't just a mild, oh, that sounds interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
And you can't go back. You're like, uh-oh. I can't, if I'm true to myself, I can't go back to doing what I always did, even though it was comfortable. Yeah. So
no, that's really cool. And so maybe we can get into more of the specifics of the event, like the organization, the structure. And you mentioned one thing that I really like about this is design of it is going to be kind of lectures paired with practicals, which is, I think, is really kind of a nice way to do it. Typically when I speak with, in front of coaches, I do a PowerPoint and about all these things. And then people after come up and say, well, how would you apply this? How would you do this? And usually I can get away with just waving my hands and then walk away. But now we actually have to put the rubber to the road, right? We're going to do practical sessions as well, where we show some of these things in action. So maybe you can talk a little bit about how it's organized.
Yeah, so we start out, we have 8 really handpicked really speakers, okay? Eight presenters. Mm-hmm. And they always say that if you want to achieve stuff, surround yourself with intelligent people, and if you're the least smart person in the room, you're in the right room, right? So I wanted to gather as many people as I knew that knew more about this than I did. And so the speakers are you, of course, because, I just really admired what you were doing. Franz Bosch, who kind of started this whole thing when I was over in Amsterdam. We had dinner with the Dutch national coaches and Franz, and he graciously agreed to share all of his knowledge. And he's been really good about applying these principles in the track and field arena and in rugby. And he pretty much handpicked the coaches that are running the skill acquisition branch of the Dutch National Federation. And I don't know if you know anything about Dutch baseball, but they have a pool of about 250 players, and they're in the top 4 in the country. They only have 250,000 players, to pull from, yet they perform at a level well above what they should be. And some would say, well, they have, their colonial ancestors, conquered Curacao, and they have all the Curacao players. Well, I I was talking to Martijn Nijhoff, one of the speakers, and he's in charge of the just the talent development over there in their baseball and softball programs. And I said, I would submit to you that the Curacao kids learned implicitly, just like you guys are doing. They did it accidentally, and you guys are doing it intentionally. Okay,
Yeah.
But it's sort of the same thing. And so that's a really nice blend for them. So the speakers are you, Franz Bosch, of course, my good friend Ron Wolfer from the Texas Baseball Ranch, who's really the first guy to kind of nudged me to go back to this. He's like, without saying it, he said, Randy, this and you need to be better at this. And so we began going down that road together of changing the way we train, baseball players. And then I have Dr. Stephen Ostler, who is a guy from Toronto. He runs the baseball development group up there. And I've had a couple of interactions with him, and I really admired his work. He's a chiropractor, but he also is a former Cornell baseball player, a pitcher. And he runs a really good program up there. And a lot of the things that he was doing, I was really excited about. And as I studied, skill acquisition and dynamic systems theory, one of the first things that his group put out was just a video PowerPoint thing it was just free to the world on what does dynamic systems theory mean to baseball people. And I was blown away that he actually just gave it away, and there it was. And so I got to know him a little bit. I invited him to come down and help as well. And then we have Martijn Nijhoff, who is the sort of the talent director of Dutch Baseball and Softball Federation. He runs all the training for the up-and-coming guys. And then we have Paul Vinner, who's their strength and conditioning coordinator, who was really integral in working with Franz in his book called Strength and Coordination and Integrative Approach. And that sort of is what compelled me to become a certified strength and conditioning specialist, so I could, begin to talk intelligent with strengthening guys. And we have Bart Hanegraaff, who's the hitting guy over there. And when we compared notes, we were almost on the same page there. And he's using the self-organization model to help improve hitters over there. And then myself, of course. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's all 8. If I left anybody out, I apologize whoever I left out. But here's the way the thing is set up this way. Okay. All the speakers present on different topics. I think yours is on the Bernstein principle and on constraint-led approach and differential learning and those kind of things. I really love those podcasts that you did. Mm-hmm. And then Franz is going to introduce sort of the overall theory and the concepts. He'll lead us off. And then Ron Wolforth is going to talk about looking at throwing movements using a dynamic systems approach, identifying the attractors of the movement, stabilizing them through our practices and our drill work, and eliminating fluctuations, but maintaining enough of them so that we have adjustability. And so we've dug deep into that. And he's going to present on that. And then we're going to have Martijn Nijhoff is going to give a presentation on implicit learning and how to structure baseball practices so that students learn implicitly as opposed to explicitly, so that the skills are learned faster, they transfer to competition better, and they hold up under the stress of psychological pressure better. And then Bart is going to, or actually Paul Venner is going to be doing the dynamic systems theory approach to strengthening. If you identify the attractors of a movement, and I'm sure your listeners are real well informed and they understand what we're talking about for the most part. So if you identify the attractors of a movement, then in the gym, you should be training the body to be really strong and functionally strong in those attractors. And he's done a great job of taking the biomechanics of throwing and then applying those principles in the gym and creating revolutionary, really, exercise programs that are unlike anything that we do over here, that involve creating strength that transfers to performance. And then we got Bart Hanegraaff, who's going to be talking about the attractors in hitting and the biomechanics of hitting and how to remove muscle slack in key parts of the swing, and how do we transfer energy through optimal link tension relationships. And then there's me, and I'll be talking about, the how of what we do. And so really I've come up with, so this is interesting. This is really where I think we are in the profession right now. Okay. In the baseball training industry, the millennials that we coach right now get knocked on a lot. Rob, everybody says these kids are lazy and they don't want to work and they don't want to do this and they're distracted, and the old school guys are just stuck on just banging on these kids. And I deal with a lot of really elite, actually players from every skill level. And what I find is, I don't see lazy or disinterested or distracted. What I see is a smart guy, a smart player who sort of intuitively understands that this old way that we've always done it isn't working. And so they want hard, but to be quite blunt, they just don't want to work hard on stupid stuff, and so they're like, something's not right here. And so they kind of tune out. But, for a long time, many, many players they wanted to work hard, but the problem was we didn't know what to work on. If you think about it, when we were coming up, we worked hard on a lot of stuff. I remember going in my mother's backyard and hitting an elm tree with a wooden bat just for no reason other than I was trying to work, and it really wasn't anything to make me a better player, but I wanted to work, and so, you spend a lot of time working on the wrong things. And so over the past decade or so, we've had this emergence of this incredible technology, that has allowed us to objectively measure, all kinds of variables. And so now really evaluating and identifying, what each player needs to work on specifically has never been more readily available. It's easier than ever for a player to understand what they need to work on. They get a biomechanical analysis and you need to do this and you need to do that. And, the rage right now in the baseball training industry and in skill development is on being data driven and science based. And that's fantastic because now we're finally getting to objective measurement. But the missing component right now, and what I think is the new frontier, we all know what to work on now. It's the how. Mm-hmm. What is the best way to do it? And that's where I think that a lot of people are missing the science of skill acquisition and motor learning. And, in your world, I know that's sort of the redheaded stepchild over there, like skill acquisition and more is in neurology. It's like this other side thing, and it's sort of that way in baseball. Like we're going to be data driven and science based, yet we ignore the science of motor learning and skill acquisition. And I think if we can blend those two, we're identifying what each player needs to work on. And now I think the edge and the new frontier in training is going to be what is the best way? How do we train them most efficiently, to make sure that they learn rapidly, that they learn with the least possible dose of intervention that we can give them, that it transfers to improved performance, and that performance withstands the stress of psychological pressure better than anywhere else. And I think that if coaches can do that, that is going to be our edge. So the 8 lecturers are going to each present a segment on Saturday. My segment is going to be on, it's basically six different ways to influence a movement pattern that don't involve verbal cueing or cognitive thought. Okay. And so there's lots of cool little techniques, and each one of them has a bunch of subcategories. And so I'll talk about that. And, it'll talk about, the constraint-led approach, and it'll give, actionable examples of how that works. And then Saturday we'll dismiss everybody. And this is going to be my favorite part, is the gathering of all these intellectual minds, wherever we decide to go, yeah. For Diet Cokes and whatever, what other indulgences we want to involve ourselves in. But just the cocktail talk and the discussions and the roundtable and the sort of the free flowing self-organization of intellectualism that's going to occur in the time after we get done with that. So then we gather back up. We're going to do that in a hotel right down the street from the ranch where everybody's staying in a conference room there, typical conference room setup. But then we're going to come out here to the ranch. Now, here's the Florida Baseball Ranch. Is 18 acres of land. We have a 120 by 60 foot metal building that looks like a beer can that's been buried on the beach. And it feels, it's not air conditioned at all, and so it's really rustic, and it sometimes feels like you're working out inside of a warm beer can. But we're going to come there, and then we're going to have 4 different rotations to allow us to actually apply the principles. And so we'll have Ron and Martijn will be together inside working on the biomechanics of throwing and how to train the attractors, the drill work that we use to do that. We're going to have Franz and Paul Vinner in our gym. We have a gym here that we do strength training here, and we're going to have those two guiding the strengthening component because Franz literally wrote the book, and so he and Paul will be in the gym teaching, strength training that improves the attractors of the movements of throwing and hitting. And then you and Bart, and you're going to love this because I heard one of your podcasts. Okay. You and Bart are going to be on we call it the motor learning laboratory, or the battery. It's a 100 by 100 foot diamond. And it's like a major league size infield with just a little strip of outfield grass, but it has 40 foot high nets and a net roof. Okay. And then we actually use a constraint-led approach to train launch angles and exit velocities. And we replicate the study that you did through virtual, your simulator, where we put the wall of screens across the infield. which sort of encourages us to choose swings that have more of an upslope and create a better launch angle.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have these custom-made windscreens in left center field and right center field that have this big red bull jumping out of the screen, and if you hit the bull, you win a steak. And so,
Nice.
so our guys, instead of trying to create swings with explicit focus, they're internally focused and trying to move their arms and legs. Instead of doing that, we get them externally focused, and we learn implicitly a different swing by just trying to accomplish the goal of hitting the bull with a baseball on your swing. And so it's really going to be fun for you because it pretty much is a real live version of the study that you did in the simulator.
Yeah.
So you and Bart are going to be out there talking about using variability to train adjustability in the swing, and how we can use a representative design, and what does that mean in a practice setting, and where does the hitter get information off the pitcher's movements and the ball, and you're going to talk about tau and all that other stuff that you do so well. And so I think that's going to be kind of exciting for you to be actually on a field teaching guys this stuff,
Yeah.
And then Dr. Oster and I are going to be handling the pain management part of it, the concept of self-organization and pain management. And Steven's going to talk about that, actually give a lecture on that on Saturday. And then we're going to show different things that we do, different modalities, different techniques. We have sort of a 3-tiered pain management system. I actually wrote a book called Start with the Pain. It's a guide to managing arm pain in elite throwing athlete. And we're going to show people, hands-on, how do you execute this pain management process when you have a guy who's injured and, it hurts to throw. And so we're going to be rotating through those 4 stations, getting these actionable, hands-on tips and techniques on how to manage all that. And then we're going to gather back together and kind of close it up nicely and send everybody on their way. And whoever wants to stick around, we may have, a bonus time at the end where people can stick around and join us again for another dinner or what if they wanted to. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, no, me too. I didn't know about the bull.
Yeah,
that sounds like fun. Yeah, I've done some things but yeah, no, that sounds like a lot of fun. And yeah, a lot of things. Obviously you're preaching to the choir with me about. Yeah, but things like you say with all the data and everything, it's all that. If we want to use it to develop players, it's feedback, right? And in motor learning, we've been studying feedback for a long time, so we know a bit about how to do it. But we, getting the specifics of some of these things is, like constraints of that approach is one thing, but actually thinking about how to do it in context is, we need both sides. We need people that understand the theory and people that understand the practicality of it. So I think that's really exciting. And
you're spot on.
Yeah. And so, I guess the last thing I wanted to mention, to talk to you about is kind of the registration. And also I wanted to ask you a little bit about the ebook that you just put out.
Yes.
Motor learning science secrets that will revolutionize your practice. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I wanted to let people know what it was we were talking about, and I felt like, we're asking these people to come and please come to our conference and please come to our conference. And I thought, I need to give them something of value before I can ask them to come anywhere. I need to let them know that this is important information that I'm going to give you for free. And, that way it doesn't seem like we're just begging you to come to this thing, sort of a money grab. And so I created this little ebook. It's like you said, it's called 7 Motor Learning Science Secrets. And basically it goes through things like representative design and implicit versus explicit learning and, and the degrees of freedom problem, and that you can't repeat a movement pattern. And so instead of being a person who tries to repeat it, you need to be able to a guy who can adjust it, and it has to happen subconsciously, and there's just not enough time for all that to happen. It goes through all sort of the basic fundamental motor learning science. Essentially what I did is I give this talk to every single player that comes through us, and their initial evaluation is I give them a motor learning and skill acquisition talk. And I just basically took what I say every day and put it in a PDF and said, here it is, guys. This is the kind of stuff we're going to be talking about. But we send it out to coaches and people from, from baseball, from all different walks of baseball. And so it's really free. And so you can get it at floridabaseballranch.com/secrets. It's a free download. Just put your email address in and it sends you the PDF. And then, of course, it leads to a few drift emails sort of saying, here's what our conference is all about. And then at the second email, I actually send them a video, the 15-minute video that is called a attractor-based pitching mechanics. And so it's a concept of what are the attractors in pitching, how do we identify them, and what do we mean when we say what these attractors are. And it kind of describes dynamic systems theory and using the attractors to kind of define movement patterns and kind of model movement patterns. And so that's free too. They get that. And then that's sort of our gift to just try to generate some interest and say, come here and listen to what these wonderful scientists have to say, and let us help you bridge the gap and help you help your players really in the most efficient and effective way possible. So, and the summit, you can find information about the summit at floridabaseballranch.com/summit. Basically, that's a registration form. It talks a little bit about what we're doing there, and it has the agenda. It has the format, in a PDF on there as well. And we had an early bird discount scheduled to end last night at midnight. And then I kind of messed up because when this thing came out, we had the idea. I flew back from Amsterdam and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. I need to have an early bird deadline so that I can kind of get an idea how many registers we're going to have. And so I chose July 18th, just sort of randomly. And, anytime we have a deadline for an event like this, my business partner, Amy, she's the MBA. She stays up till the deadline is over, taking phone calls, answering questions. And so it's a really, really long night for her. But I forgot that it was her birthday. and so last night during the rush of phone calls we were getting, I thought I'm going to help her out. And I jumped in and had the phones forwarded to my cell phone. And I'm going to take over and give her a break. And I screwed it up. And, techno challenged as I am. And she saved the day and jumped in and, retrieved it all but just because we thought we might have missed some people, I decided to extend the deadline through July 31st. And so if people can register before July 31st, they can save a lot of money on the summit and really get in with the early bird discount and get registered and get here and just kind of, I don't really consider the attendees as being here to learn. I think it's going to be a really interactive exchange of ideas, and it's going to be fun for both the presenters and the attendees to kind of get together and just come up with ways to move the ball forward and help our guys get better.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's definitely a one of a kind event, and I'm really looking forward to it. I would just go and listen, even if I wasn't speaking. So you sold me. That's cool. So again, that's September 8th and 9th, right? And coming soon. So thanks for taking some time to talk to me about this, Randy. I really appreciate it.
I'm so excited. I'm thrilled to be on with you, and keep doing the great work that you do, and we'll keep kind of passing the information that you find for us, and we'll pass it down to the coaches and see if we can spread the word about, there's a better way to do this. And I think we can all be much better than we are right now. So thanks for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in September.
Thanks again for the great discussion, Randy. As Randy mentioned, you can find all the details and register for the Skill Acquisition Summit by going to floridabaseballranch.com/summit. I really hope I will see some of you there. I think it's going to be a fun and informative event. Remember, you can contact me at robgray@asu.edu or follow me on Twitter at ShakyWeights. To find out more about the podcast, please check out perceptionaction.com. Finally, to support the podcast and receive bonus materials, including an extra monthly episode and transcripts, please head over to patreon.com/perceptionaction. This is Rob Gray from ASU. Cheers for now, and keep 'em coupled.
I've drunk myself sick.